Dave Harper, Chesapeake College, Chesapeake Community College on Maryland's Eastern Shore. My position there, VP Workforce and Academic Programs.
Awesome. Any other committee members, feel free to jump in.
Robin Werner, Talbot County Public Schools. I'm the Career Technical Education Supervisor for TCPS.
Kirkland Murray, President and CEO of Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation, representing the Maryland Workforce Association, which is the 13th association of the 13th Workforce Development Directors in the state of Maryland.
Thank you. And we are very fortunate to have additional folks joining our committee meeting today. We have Rachel with AIB and Michael with the Governor's Workforce Board. So I will just give them a moment to introduce themselves also.
Sure. Hi, Rachel Heiss, Executive Director of the AIB, and just wanted to welcome you all, and we're really looking forward to working with you and your interactions and feedback as we're implementing the blueprint. I'm not going to be able to stay very long, but I did want to say hello, and we'll be working with you more in the future.
Good afternoon, Mike DiGiacomo, and I'm the Executive Director for the Governor's Workforce Development Board and the newly formed CTE Committee, and we look forward to collaborating with you.
Thank you so much. And Mike, I think that we consider you like an adjunct to our work because it's so closely connected. So I'm sure we will be reaching out.
As we do you, right? It's a partnership. So we just want to make sure we get everybody's input as we start moving through. So I look forward to working with you all as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know that today we had spoken in our previous meeting about being able to provide feedback on the implementation graphic and being able to do that prior to our meeting to really streamline the process in our meetings. And right now, it's my understanding that the AIB is working on updating that implementation graphic. And so we didn't want to share anything with everyone to react to and provide feedback just yet, because it's my understanding that is being worked on as we speak. Rachel, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah, literally as we speak, it is being worked on. So we are working very diligently to update the pillar graphic, the pillar implementation graphics, and also the draft of the entire comprehensive plan, the initial draft. And so that will be out in the very near future. I think early next week is when we can reasonably say to look for it, and we'll make sure we provide it directly to the advisory committee members, as well as it'll be posted on the website, and the graphics themselves will be downloadable. So and hopefully the format that we're incorporating for the plan will actually provide a little more. It'll be a little easier to read, maybe than the implementation graphics. We'll be interested in your feedback on whether that's actually true or not. But that's our goal.
Thank you. I think our initial goal, and I would love to hear additional feedback from the committee members, was to be able to have the graphic in a workable document so that we could, if it's not already in a Google Doc, create a Google Doc, and then we would be able to capture some of our questions and feedback. And as we progress throughout the year, we can really focus on specific areas at a time. And so do you think that it will be in a way that we can do that as a committee?
I think we've hesitated to do that up till now because it was changing regularly, but we've had that request from others as well. And so what we'll do is we'll release it so that it's downloadable as an Excel document. And then you can sort of copy and paste and, upload it as a Google Doc. I will warn you that it does get a little finicky when it's in Google Doc versus in Excel. But we will definitely provide it in a format where you're able to, edit and add column questions on the side and that kind of thing. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And so next week is our target. And we have an upcoming meeting scheduled for November 2nd. So hopefully, if it's next week, then I'll be able to download it, put it in a Google Doc, and then share it with the team to provide some feedback in anticipation of our November 2nd meeting.
Yeah, and if you'd like, we can, if you let us know sort of what you're looking for, we can do that for you. In terms of like a formatting. Yeah. When I say we, I do not mean me because it's not my forte. But Rachel or Graham could definitely do that.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to have to run, but I did just want to say Rachel Imstutz is here from the AIB staff, as well as Graham, who's who's running the technological aspects of the meeting. So you're in great hands and have a great meeting.
Thank you,
Rachel.
much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank you.
So we've got a couple more updates. November 10th is the public hearing. So just to bring awareness to that and any support or sharing with your constituents, I think would be also great. And we are very fortunate to have Mike here. I was able to join the meeting on October 4th. I think it was maybe the first Workforce Development Board meeting, but I would love to, Mike, if you could just give some context for us as to where you guys are with your committee and your work.
Awesome. Again, thanks for the opportunity to join. I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle to keep us all connected in what we're in the work that we're going to be doing. So let me give you some context. So we did have our first meeting October the 4th. The Governor's Workforce Development Board, for those people who don't know, is made up of 59 members. Within the Governor's Workforce Development Board is the CTE committee, which is made up of 11 members. On the October 4th meeting, if you go to our website that I'll put in the chat, which is gwdb.maryland.gov, there is a tab for the CTE committee that we have just started that has the recording for that meeting. It also has the presentation and agenda for that meeting. And it also lists out all of the CTE committee members. So if you're interested and people want to go get information, go to that, go to our website, they'll be able to find it. As some updates of where we are at the moment, for those of you who know Molly Mesnard, who's really the deputy director for the CTE committee, she had her baby on Thursday evening and is on maternity leave until mid-February. So we are actively working to hire a program manager. We're in the last stages of doing reference checks. So hopefully in the next week or two, we will have a program manager on board to help support the CTE committee. And today I have a final interview with a youth apprentice. So we are hiring a youth apprentice to help support our staff from Baltimore City Schools. So that's another person that we are going to be bringing on to provide some youth encouragement, youth input, as well as provide him some, guidance and mentorship and coaching in the youth apprenticeship role. So along that, along those lines, we are going to be having we're in the midst of scheduling our next meeting. And in addition to that, the big thing that's due from the CTE committee is a plan is due to the AIB, March of 2023. So we are in the final stages of completing an agreement with an organization to help us write that plan. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll get all the paperwork together. And at that point is when we will start really, together, the committee will start reaching out to all the stakeholders to get their input into that plan. A lot of that will be done via surveys, but we need to also, once we get a program manager on, start talking about how do we do that at the local levels. We have spent the last year connecting our workforce development directors with the CTE directors and LEAs to try and form a collaboration early on. But as we start with the plan, I think we are going to look for ways to get down to the local levels to understand better what, both from a sector perspective as well as a geographic perspective, what does career technical education look like in each of those different areas? So be on the lookout. We will connect with you all as we start down that path once we sign an agreement and get that moving to get your input as well. And where else should we be going to get that input? Because we're going to need that input from all different stakeholders, both at the state and local level, both from education as well as employer, as well as a local workforce board directors, since that's where we have actually made those connections. So we'd like to find ways to streamline our communications at the local level. So with that, I will open it up if anybody's got any questions, but that's a kind of a quick overview. Hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have a few more folks on staff and we will start actually working on getting input for our plan.
Mike, I do have a question. I appreciate your update on kind of the timeline there. So I had the pleasure of meeting with most of Maryland CTE directors yesterday in Calvert County. We had our Maryland Career and Technical Administrators Association meeting. And, we're trying to plan and also maneuver all of our CTE requirements that we have now at the same time. So I think one of the concerns for us is if March is the timeline for some of this, we are that will be after we've already turned in our programs of study to our local boards, because most of us do that in January for approval. We also have a lot of our funding for our programs that goes into our Perkins 5, which is federal. And that's how most of our programs our CTEs programs are funded, especially for our technical assessments. So there was a lot of concern of how do we plan in this transitional place we're in right now, because do we go with what we've always been doing and the assessments and the different, because some of our assessments aren't necessarily for industry, they're college credit. Do we plan for those both financially and with our programs next year? Because we also kind of can't wait. So there's just a little uncertainty of what we do in this. And I know you know that, but we're just trying to figure out, because all of this is very expensive. And we're afraid that if we plan like the way we've always done, and then we find out that program is going to need to be updated, or that program is going to need a different industry credential that we can't afford or can't provide for whatever reason, we just want to be able to plan accordingly, both with our financially with our programs in Perkins, but then also with our programs of study. So I know that's a loaded statement / question, but do you have advice on like what we should be doing in the immediate move forward this year?
So we just had a conversation with the AIB board. I mean, if you take a look at our plan and your plan are all guided by the AIB and what is actually in legislation. So I think as we start, once we see the AIB plan, the final plan that comes out in December, I think it is, then we will start then to take a look at where do the rest of the pieces actually fit in, because we are going to be responsible, like you are, to the AIB. But I don't think there's anything that's going to be in the existing plan that you shouldn't be planning for. Like, we aren't going to come out in the next 6 months and tell you that, we just got our committee started. So I think what we're going to be, basically looking for is to use what you're currently doing and integrate them in at least for the short term as we start planning out. So we have no intent on getting in the middle of all the work that you are already doing. I think it's just going to be a timing of when does everything fit into the overall plan.
Okay. So you foresee it being kind of like a slower rollout. Like if the CTE committee feels that there's one particular program that might need adjustment in their industry credentials, there would be a plan as to when we would make that switch. It wouldn't just be immediate. We need to use a different credential.
Absolutely. We're
Okay.
a long way from, like I said, the committee's just got on board in July. We have just started to work on the plan. We know that everybody's got work to do. The local boards have work to do. You all have work to do. We've got work to do. We will find ways to bring it all together. And then as we start going through the plan, and if there are additional recommendations that need to get made by the committee, then we'll roll them out at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I know of the areas that we're looking at. CTE is such a big thing. Like, I'm surprised it's not its own pillar. I get, it all fits together, but it's just so intense.
Yes, it is.
Well, there's so many, I would just add to this, right? It is because of the way the spirit of the legislation brings so many different parties together that need to be doing things in collaboration, right? So it's not just education doing something, or the board doing something, or the committee doing something. In order for any of this to work, the spirit is that we have to collaborate together. And I think that's where it becomes a little tricky in timing of when everybody does things. But I will tell you, from the CTE committee's perspective, our job is to help collaborate in making this work.
Thank you so much. All right, so I think we can get into some of the other areas. If you are not working with your local workforce development board, or attending meetings, I also encourage you to do that. I think every meeting that I have attended, I've learned so much from different lenses of looking at, again, this same legislation. So again, with our implementation, Pillar 3, we have 4 overarching areas. The students having equitable opportunities to become CCR, keeping students on track to meet CCR, implementing CCR pathways, and providing high quality career counseling and CTE programs. What I was hoping we could do today is take a look at the graphic and potentially divide up each one of those big rocks. So when we come to our future meetings, we know we're going to be focusing on, let's say, 3.2 or 3.4. 3.4, I think, is going to take several meetings, but just being able to break that up so that we have focused dialogue when we come together. And then if we need to add or request other folks join, we would be able to let them know which meetings we're going to be talking about which topics.
That sounds like a good idea. I think that's really the only way to tackle this.
I agree. I think that's the best way to tackle this.
So I guess my question is, what do we do when, with the information that we have? We also have a meeting on November 2nd. So I think first things first, Let's take a look at the 4 areas. And I guess, how do you foresee our discussion going? Let's say, let me pull up the graphic.
Can I share with you a little bit of the conversation that Rachel and I had yesterday? Rachel came down and met with myself and some of my staff. And we were talking about this very part of this, you know, looking at this part. There are a lot of different stakeholders who are part of this. So, of course, the school system is part of this. You know, and the school system is broken down in different parts. You know, you have the career college and career readiness piece. You have technical ed piece of this that's involved in this. You have the community college that's involved in this. You have the local board. So I think as we go through these pieces, really saying who really needs to be involved in these, because that would kind of lead to who we may want to invite in when we're having those conversations about that piece, instead of, you know, someone not really being intimately involved in this, having to sit through this. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So maybe if we just went through the, you know, the big pieces and maybe the sub pieces, saying who really should be part of this conversation on these things. Would that be helpful?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just a quick comment, just to that point, like, you know, we can provide feedback. Am I understanding this correctly, that we can provide feedback on the draft comprehensive plan, right? It'll be provided to us. We'll have a period of time, at least a week before the public hearing on November 10th. And so with our constituent groups, it might be community colleges for me, it might be CTE directors for Robin, you know, et cetera. We can kind of workshop feedback or bring to the table feedback from those groups that this committee has opportunity to provide at the 11/10 public hearing. And also, like, adjunct to that draft completion plan or draft comprehensive plan is the implementation graphic, right? That's like the visual summation of that draft. So we'll get the draft of both, reach out to our various groups as we're able, make sure we're representing their concerns, their questions, which are many for each of these points, and then bring that to the public hearing. That's at least a next step for us. Am I right about that?
So I was to make sure
Sorry, just real quick. One thing I would add in, David, is that you don't have to wait to bring it to the public hearing. That you can send it directly to me to get to our staff and the AIB members. So that's just one minor clarification there, that the public hearing, you're welcome to come as well, but we're also looking to extend the reach to people who might not have access. And as advisory committee members, you've got access to be able to send us that feedback directly as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think our timeline is necessarily the same. And so I think because the public hearing is November 12th, the great thing is we do have that direct access, so we can adjust to that.
And obviously we'll need to be at some point communicating back and forth with Michael and the CTE committee, because there's overlapping, you know, implications here. Okay, that's helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
just to clarify, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as everyone. So what we're going to do when we break these up into smaller pieces and different topics, so we're going to suggest reaching out to colleagues in our respective areas to get input, but then also potentially inviting some of them to our meetings if we know that we're talking about a particular, are we going to do both? Also maybe invite someone. I'm just thinking for myself, I would want to get, you know, I'm unique with CTE. I have comprehensive high schools where CTE is in our high schools. I would like to have the voice of someone who has a career tech center. I'm on the Eastern Shore, having the voice from someone that's not as a rural area, across the bridge for me. So would that be appropriate when we start to figure out our timeline of dates, of thinking ahead of, these are the people I would like to kind of look over this, and then I'm going to invite some of them to this meeting? Are we allowed to do that, Rachel? Okay.
You'd be able to bring in guests to the meetings for sure. And if we can take a quick moment and welcome Dr. Doss, who's just joined us. We're kind of ironing out what's to come and how the team will work and how we'll dig into the massive work ahead of us to be able to give feedback.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to pop in as one of your board liaisons for Pillar 3. I'm very glad to see most of you here, and I know that you're doing well. I know that you're doing the work, but I just want to reiterate how important the work is, and that we are Pillar 3, and we got to get this right. Right? Okay. No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Thank you, Mara.
And I'm going to kind of stay in the background and be kind of a silent participant here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So picking back up on what Robin was just saying, that's what I was proposing, that, you know, if we went through and we knew who the stakeholders were, that we would make sure that they're aware that we're discussing that and bringing them in. I think Robin is similar to myself, that you have an association of CTE directors that, you know, probably have been discussing this. I know that we have the 13 workforce development directors. We've been discussing this. And when we get to the parts that we think that are appropriate for them to be part of this, that we make them aware of that and invite them in. You know, again, I will try to get their comments beforehand so that we at least know where we're starting with, but at least let them have an opportunity to hear what we're saying and add anything to the conversation.
I love that. And I'm hopeful that we can do that. And I think that speaks to us being able to kind of group the work so that we are very intentional with, you know, when we're talking and speaking about certain things. And as we're doing this, I just want to remind everyone that, you know, we are requested to have one meeting per quarter. I don't know if that's ever going to be possible for our team, but that is the minimum request. But we also don't want to make this so enormous that we're meeting every week, because we actually could. Like our pillar is so in depth and so layered that this could be a standing meeting every week for 2 hours. And so I just want to make sure that we are realistic also in how we're trying to do this for this first year, because this is new to everyone. So let's take a look at the areas. So we've got, of course, so I think, one, I'm very visual and I'm also very linear. And so for me, I like to break things up like 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4. I don't know if that works for everyone else. So please let me know what works best for you.
For me, that works.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Okay, great. Dave, how about you?
No objection at all.
All right, so 3.1, let's go in. So 3.1 is really, it looks a lot like it's on the school system and how students are assessed. I am extremely interested in this empirical study and where we are with that and how that's going. So for 3.1, I'm going to go back to our agenda. It looks like that is MSDE heavy.
You're talking about determining the CCR assessment and standard,
Absolutely.
which for my part, I just wonder whether it has to be a single assessment, whether there could be alternative or multiple measures that assess and evaluate college and career readiness.
That's absolutely what I'm interested in as well, because we have an MOU that we currently work from to allow access to college courses. And so
Exactly.
let me go back. I'm going to go back. I have to read and reread and read and reread.
I also wonder how payment or funding will be tied to that assessment in terms of who is determined, what students are determined to be college and career ready, and how payment follows and where payment is sourced, where that funding comes from.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, on some of the summer meetings on Pillar 3, that this was discussed a lot, that there was consideration of a variety of ways for CCR to be established for a student. And I know that, we're going to need the empirical data for some of this, or MSDE will. But I'm wondering if there's ways that we could even have suggestions of what those non-traditional ways of determining CCR would look like. Because as you all know, if there's any updates to an assessment, so whether we continue with MCAP or MCAP is updated, that takes a long time for that to be established with standard setting. And but so that's really out of anyone's control at the moment. But what we might be able to do is come up with, if the AIB is interested in other measures for CCR besides MCAP or whatever assessment, maybe that's where we could come in with the CTE committee of coming up with ideas of things that may also show that a student is CCR. And then aligning those. So when the study comes back, of these are things that determine or classify student as CCR, does that align to some suggestions that we had? Whether that's performance in a certain course that they've demonstrated success in, or other assessments, whatever those may be. Just thought if in the meantime of something that we can actually do, that there's not a roadblock waiting for that study.
Robin, I so appreciate that, because in a way, whoever conducts that study, the MSDE contracts too, it's how they write that contract is important, because if they ask for a single instrument, they will be, they have instead the opportunity to ask for a process that determines college and career readiness, because community colleges are they're open door institutions, so they're tasked with their incoming freshmen every year with identifying college and career readiness to see whether remediation may be needed. And what we've found collectively, with mountains of data behind it over time, is that no single instrument accurately predicts for every student. And so we've had to multiply or provide alternative measures. And what we've seen is much more accuracy with alternative and multiple measures. And so if the way that MSDE writes that contract allows for that conclusion instead of specifying one particular instrument, then we're already ahead.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of that too is, if they aren't CCR, what are the different avenues so that they can be supported to be CCR without them being behind in whatever pathway they want to choose, whether that's CTE or dual enrollment or AP or more than one of those. I think that those students who are in the support pathways, there's been a lot of conversation, when I've met with other CTE directors, of students potentially having to choose, and I know that they don't have to really choose per se. They can do more than one pathway, but in a sense they do because they only have so much room in their schedules. My concern is more with those students who fall in that support pathway of what does that look like for them? And are they missing out on opportunities to start their other pathways? And I know that's been discussed, that students won't for the many years from now, but still, we just don't want students having a roadblock. And how can we give them support? What are avenues for support without them having to lose access to those? So, and I know that kind of moves on a little bit further down on that 3.1, but just while we're thinking about creative ideas for that, I think that's something to consider too, of what does support look like.
Rachel, do we know if the award, if the contract has been awarded for the study, or can we find out?
We can get more information. I haven't officially heard that it's been awarded, but I will confirm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think so for right now, it seems like everything is so time sensitive. Like, as we dig into each piece, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what can we talk about as our next meeting? And everything seems like it's for our next meeting. But let's kind of sum up 3.1. It looks like we need to reach out to MSDE directly. Really learning more about the study that's going to be facilitated, and the assessments, multiple measures. So I'm thinking MSDE would be a great person to invite when we talk about that. And when we do, we can also give them the specific area that we want to talk with them about. So as we invite people, make sure that they understand there's so many other things that we can talk about in Pillar 3, but today it's only 3.1.
And to Mara's point too, on that study, as we reach out and communicate with MSDE, even if the contract had been awarded, is MSD open, because they're the decision maker? Are they open to considering the recommendation of the contract and potentially alternative measures of CCR?
Yeah, and even as we are talking about this, I know, Robin, you talked about this transition period with CTE. It's the same with this CCR and college courses, and access and payment. We're in this holding pattern. I'm saying that where no one's holding, but just in a space that we're trying to learn our next steps and our next moves. Okay.
If I could chime in quickly there, I'm thinking I definitely can reach out to MSDE and get an update on that RFP and where they are with the study. And then I guess, Dr. Doss, I'm curious, in terms of kind of protocol, would it be best for the committee to bring you and the other members' recommendations to decide what the AIB members want to take forward to MSDE, or trying to think of how to streamline the process between the organizations?
Well, it would be best if the advisory committee members brought those recommendations to the AIB.
Exactly. Okay.
And then it goes to MSDE.
Yeah. And then I can get information, like answers to some of these questions from MSDE and provide those back to the team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear as well. So we are going through these different sub areas, and we will let you know that we want to meet these dates to talk about these things and have these people invited. Or are you saying we're going to collaborate everything, do all this other stuff, and then send that back to you guys, and then you would make recommendations?
Yeah, and ultimately, you're the advisory committee to the AIB. And so whatever it is that you do, you want to make sure that you're bringing those recommendations directly to the AIB. And so that the AIB will carry those forward as appropriate to the other entities. But that's not saying that you can't meet with the other entities. And I see Michael, Mike is online and so forth, and making sure that you continue to collaborate.
All right, so 3.2, keeping students on track to meet CCR.
That was kind of where I went ahead on my last comment.
Right.
But it's all connected, so, but there are some areas in here that, despite not knowing all the ins and outs of that empirical study and where MSCE is with it, I think there are some pieces to this one where we probably could come up with some suggestions or ideas of what those things might look like what some of those supplemental services look like. I know so far some of the examples have been after school or in the summer programs for supplementing students that aren't CCR. And, I don't know if there's something else we could think beyond that as a committee, because I know that a concern is that a lot of students might not be able to do something that's outside of the school day. They have jobs. If we're also trying to have them in apprenticeship programs, which is another big piece of Blueprint, like that, it will take up time in their schedules. This could get difficult if there are things that are requiring them outside of school or in the summer. So not that those might not also be a possibility for some students, but maybe we can kind of collaborate and think of other things that would be acceptable by the AIB and MSCE for supplementing those students to make it possible for students who won't be able to do those tracks.
So, question for everybody. So $62 per student is coming from the school system to the local board. Is this where you're looking for the local boards to be involved with some of this, some of the activities around 3.2? I mean, because, you talked about summer programs. We all run summer youth programs. We do in Anne Arundel County, and because of funding, we're only limited in doing this in 3 schools. We have a program that's a 2-semester program. The first semester is doing career exploration, job readiness, soft skills training. And then when kids, the young people, the students successfully complete that first semester, then the second semester, we're putting them into paid internships. So is this where you see that the local board should be part of this conversation? Because we may be able to, with that funding, do some of these things to make sure that students are staying on track for college and career readiness?
Yes and no. So for the part that I was referencing, that was specifically for the support pathways where we would have like our teachers and support staff basically having classes, intervention type classes to help support them. That $62, my understanding, is for the career counseling, which the programs like that you just referenced, that would be important. I think that falls more under the CTE parts in 3.4, but that we do need that collaboration. So I think that's where we would bring on those boards for that, because that is going to come together. And that's another reason why having summer, again, it's not like we can't do this, but if summer is one of our only avenues for support pathways, and we're also offering summer opportunities for the workforce development boards to do career counseling, we want to make sure that those are available to all students. And it's not like they're going to school getting this support while other students who met CCR are having some counseling. Those are the things that sometimes I envision in my head that we don't. That's something that could be an unintentional consequence of some of these things. And that's where I think that that's our job to try to see ahead of that could happen, and what are things that we could do to avoid that or provide other options. So yes, I think that we will need to invite, I've spoken to on the Eastern Shore, our workforce development board is much different because it's serving 5 counties.
Right.
And although we're smaller, that's a lot to serve with different needs. I know that all 5 counties already have something in place that's different, and some could use a lot more support in those areas than others. So I think that they're all going to want to collaborate. I was meeting there yesterday. A lot of the CTE directors had spoken, their conversations with workforce development boards. And I think that would be great to bring different people who have different ideas for that, to see what that counseling could look like. Because I think there could be a lot of great opportunities for that to happen in the summer. It doesn't just have to happen during the school day. I think a lot of people were thinking that, myself included, that would be like a career counselor who's in the schools all the time. But yeah, I think that's a great opportunity for some brainstorming with those boards.
So for 3.2, this is an area that we would want the local boards to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think this would be people who would be involved with scheduling, like school counselors and administrators and teachers, curriculum supervisors who are familiar with the standards. Again, we don't know exactly what CCR would look like, but we do have an idea what CCR looks like now. So, going off of that, of just kind of getting in those different perspectives of what support's going to look like in different schools, and what are some ideas that other schools have already come up with, because these are things that we're already trying to have to plan, even though we're in that transition time. We're going to have to start planning these avenues for kids in our program of study and our master schedules.
So I want to make sure I understand 3.4, the high quality career counseling. That's the MOU between with workforce, LEAs, local education authorities, and community colleges. But there's overlap here with 3.2 because career counseling is intimately connected to student performance, right? And remediation. So let me ask you this timing question, Robin. I don't know exactly what the timing is of the sophomore level CCR assessment. I don't know where that is in your sophomore year. But is it possible sometimes for students to begin their CTE programming in the sophomore year? So if you're talking about remediation, whether that be for the college path, early college, or whether that be for a CTE path to get a credential or an apprenticeship, if that's being identified late in the sophomore year, how do we accomplish that remediation that keeps a student on track for one of those options? Because then they're into their junior year. Is that sort of part of what you're saying?
That is. So actually in some of the high schools that are comprehensive high schools like ours, students can actually start in as early as 8th grade or 9th grade. We've started to, there are some programs like our engineering program, Project Lead the Way is a program that we can have 8th graders get their first high school credit, and that pathway leads on to engineering. And we don't want to move away from that, because that is an avenue for students to get college credits and to allow them to do, we want kids to be able to start CTE as early as possible, because then they can also do an apprenticeship after that, after they complete a program. So that has been a question. I think that I'm not sure. From what I've heard, this isn't going to stop students from being able to start pathways in the sequences that some of us have now. A lot of the career and tech centers have 11th and 12th grade because they're there for like half of a day. But the schools that do start earlier, it's my understanding we're not going to stop that. But I'm not sure what that looks like then if a student has only partially met CCR. So the way it is now, students would take an assessment in 9th and 10th grade, some as early as 8th grade, depending on what math they're in. And then they take their English assessment in 10th grade. So we get those scores at the end of 10th grade. So what does that look like for a student who has already started a program, who's already started a dual enrollment class? I mean, we have students that have taken dual enrollment Chesapeake in 10th grade. Do they have to be paused and do some of their CCR remediation and support, or can they do that concurrently while moving on in the pathway? I think those are some of the things that are going to have to be ironed out for logistical purposes to make sure that students can get everything that they want out of these different pathways.
And final note, super quick, I see our time, or maybe we do have more time than I think, but in any case, final note on that is just, we've been talking about CCR, college career readiness, early college or CTE, and career, as if it's the same assessment for the same readiness, but they're typically, for these programs, two different things. They're different types of evaluation and assessment for the different types of programs.
Right.
If you want to be in STEM, that may be one level of math. If you want to go into welding or automotive mechanic, that's a different level of math. So it's not as if in that case, the same assessment could accomplish, both ends.
Right.
Okay, so we have exactly 30 minutes left in our meeting. No, it's okay. The dialogue is very rich. And I think what we're learning is everything is interconnected. Of course, we don't want to unintentionally penalize students, but there's only so much time in the day and there's only so much summer.
Right.
So we have students going to tutoring, summer school. At the same time, they can participate with some of the other work opportunities in their 11th, 12th grade years as well. So I'm hearing 3.2. We're talking about on track to meet CCR, but it seems as if the definition is directly linked to reading and mathematics. In 3.2, when it talks about interventions, it looks like it's addressing students who are struggling readers and even as young as kindergarten. So I'm going to put, so for 3.2, it looks like MSTE, but specifically some of the core academics.
What do you mean by core academics?
The 3 R's.
Okay.
I am, and just because when it lists something specifically, it goes into reading and mathematics, but that may be my interpretation.
Those are the major analysis points for college and career readiness typically.
And I think that the concern is from CTE world is that there may be students who are not strong in one of those areas, but CTE can be another avenue to help support them to improve their skills in those areas because they're applying those skills to areas that they're engaged in. So, if we have a student who goes into the carpentry program, they have to apply math. They have to apply reading to that. They have to be able to, their reading blueprints, they're applying those skills. So it's another way for them to apply some of these standards, but they're doing it in an area that they may be more engaged in. So the concern from CTE is if a student is not demonstrating performance in one of those areas that you all mentioned, and then they are not able to go into one of those pathways could be what actually helps support them.
Right.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot. I was an administrator at Easton High School, and I have seen students who, when they got scheduled into the right programs, absolutely flourished as a student in 10th or 11th grade because they found their niche and everything kind of clicked for them. So I think that's a really big concern, is that whatever that looks like for the CCR component, not there being a barrier from that. And dual enrollment could be another area, or AP. Those areas might
Absolutely.
engage them more, because I've seen students who graduated early because they enrolled in Chesapeake College and they were leaving campus and they were just ready to move forward, and they were very successful that way. So I just want to make sure that that's expressed, that if there's a way to make sure that that does not happen, you know, we can find something that runs concurrently while they're in these programs. If they need support, that the piece that they actually need for support, we're not blocking them because of whatever they scored on that assessment.
Absolutely. And I think, Robin, you are a one step ahead, because I'm looking at 3.3 and implementing those pathways and ensuring the access is there. And not preventing all of the things that you have said. I am thinking go right in alignment with 3.3.
Yeah, I mean, just to support what Robin is saying, that we, from a workforce development standpoint, we've run programs where we've taken people who are basic adult skills deficient, and we've put them into blended programs where we're doing the occupational training and adult basic skills training, but the adult basic skills is related to the occupation, and we've seen those people do extremely well with that. So they may have tested low in math, but when you bring them in and you apply that math to the industry or to the career they're looking at, they do very well in that.
Got it. So help me sketch out who we are talking about for 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, because it seems like everything is related, which we knew. We knew there's going to be an intentional collaboration with our community colleges, with CTE, our workforce development boards, and our academic areas, all academic areas at the school system level. So are we saying that we want to invite everyone to every meeting and discuss each one of these separately? Is that what I'm hearing? Because it seems like when we're trying to drill down, everything is related. Everything is related. And so I just want to hear from the group, how do you think we can best support this? Because I think as the ears ears are hearing the same thing, everyone is reading their interpretation of what they're working with in their everyday.
I may not be able to answer that fully, Olivia, but I know, for example, this is an integrated unit, 3.1, 2, 3, and 4, and community colleges, for instance, we are implicated in all four in some form or another.
And I can make the same argument about the local boards.
And the same thing for CTE and public schools, obviously. So
I guess we have it. So we are inviting representatives additional to each. We are going to, if I'm hearing correctly, try to break down our meetings so each meeting focuses on one particular area. I think if we don't, we may not get anything accomplished. We'll have great dialogue every time, but I'm not sure we would get as much accomplished as we are hoping to do.
Yeah, I would agree.
So one area I did want to bring up with the pathways, because I believe that's what 3.3, implementing the pathways. So a lot of conversation, and I'm not going to talk about CTE this time, about the pathways is what dual enrollment and what that would look like, and then also what an AP pathway would look like. There's a lot of anxiousness about how many classes, what would that look like, what are the options. I think schools just want to make sure that they are having enough options for students to start those pathways. So would this group be open to hearing? I know that in my former position in Talbot County, I've always done while being at the district level, done CTE, but I also was the local accountability coordinator, so I dealt with a lot of testing. And I've had some communication with College Board over the years. And our one of the directors for College Board that works with Maryland schools, her name's Cindy Kelly. She's been going to other districts and offering sessions on what some of these pathways could look like to help support them in doing that. She has reached out to me that she would be open to sharing that at this level as well, of what some of those pathways can look like for students. Is that something that you all would be interested when we get to that piece as an example of someone to invite? Or I could share some things that she provides me. I know that there are some schools that are going to a meeting, I believe next week in Rockville, that she'll be at one of the schools presenting with some other representatives from College Board, just to see what some of those examples of pathways look like. Dave, I'm assuming you would have some examples of what Chesapeake or other community colleges are looking like. I just think when we get to that one, and I know I'm jumping ahead because we might start from the beginning and go to 3-1. I would just like to be able to, if you all are okay with that, reach out to people in those areas that maybe they could actually come and present some ideas and examples, since that they're experts in those areas.
In addition, just wanted to add that MSDE did put forth some examples with some of those pathways, especially with dual enrollment and early middle college programs, and one of their deep dives. And this was a few months ago. So we may want to check with MSDE too.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you, Robin. We certainly have examples that are currently active and, aware of others. So. And typically, what I'm hearing in the past 5-10 minutes is an argument for individualized student advising, in essence, because co-requisite support based on the student's unique scores on assessments and evaluation points. So instead of prerequisite support, co-requisite, so that they're doing the thing that gets them excited in their program while they're learning the skill or brushing up on the skill in which they may be a little bit deficient. And then that pathway could be unique. The pathway could be unique by student, because most of the models that we're seeing, students can earn, say, for example, on the college side, 15 or 30 or 45 or even 60 college credits before they graduate. And it's different based on the student's ability and level of achievement and personal decision. So it's flexibility built in to the system.
I really like that. And it always, it makes me think about the assessments. Hopefully there would be a multiple measure assessment, but what does that look like? So we have students, they're assessed, they're excited about a particular area. Let's say they want to learn more. And then are they reassessed? Like, how are we coming back to that? Or is there progression in their area going to provide the same type of, I don't want to say assessment, but qualifier as being college and career ready? Like, maybe not this assessment, but if we're using multiple measures, if they do this, then they are now deemed college and career ready in a particular area.
I mean, it's almost by pathway, because a math level of achievement appropriate for a traditional trade differs from a math level of achievement for computer science, maybe, or maybe a STEM program. And so you'd have different thresholds for different programs.
Well, and I think the key where the Olivia breath is individualized. Or Dave, you might have brought that up too. I think a lot of us have said that at some point. You know, in my mind, what would be nice in a perfect world would be that we use that CCR data. It's and what we do with that. So not to be a gatekeeper, which I don't think is the intention of the law with that. I think the intention is to to have high expectations for our students and our teachers. That's the intention of all students meeting CCR in 10th grade. But if we know our students and we're doing this career counseling, we have the support there where we really get to know all of our students and what their aspirations are, what their strengths are, what they want to do, and what their weaknesses are, allowing them to move forward in those pathways, despite maybe not being completely at CCR in that moment, but instead taking that information from those assessments and individualizing support for them along those pathways. So a student wants to go into dual enrollment or wants to go into AP or CT, whatever it is, whatever staff is working with them, that if we know that they were successful on their ELA assessment, but they were not as successful on their math, we take that information and individualize and scaffold and provide them the support while we're doing those pathways. I think the problem is, how do you capture that with data that they are now CCR? I mean, one thing I could see would be their performance in the program. To me, if a student hadn't quite met CCR, but then wanted to move forward and they were still going down the road of one of those programs, but they demonstrated that they were able to be successful in an AP class or any of these pathways that first semester, do they really need to go and do other coursework to demonstrate that? You know, if the teacher and the staff have taken that information and taken that data and supported them, then maybe they have been remediated within those pathways, and then they're demonstrating success with a successful performance in that course or that pathway. Could that be something that shows that they've been supported and that they have had the remediation that they need within the pathway? Because then we're not stopping anyone from going in the direction we're going, but is there a way to still hold teachers and administrators and everyone involved, curriculum supervisors, everyone accountable for providing that support, the appropriate support for those students at the same time? Again, I think the piece of it though is how do you actually capture that they are now CCR while doing that simultaneously? I don't know, but in a perfect world, that's what it would look like to me.
That's you said it so beautifully, because that's what was in my mind. Something that is specific to the students' needs, and also allowing them to proceed. So I want us to just take a moment, because I think I have to think about how we're going to organize all of these meetings, since it's not going to be as initially as simplistic as I was thinking in my mind, right? But also think about our next meeting date. We had one of our team members is not able to make it during the time period that we set forth. And so I wanted to just pull up his available times, and I'm gonna see if I can kind of let you guys all know what they are. So looks like late evening Mondays, midday Tuesdays, mornings on Wednesdays, a good portion of the day on Thursday, and afternoon on Fridays. And so November 2nd, we are scheduled, I believe, from 2 to 3:30. Are we able to go any earlier? I know our information is supposed to be available next week. So I don't know if November 2nd is too soon to have a meeting. I just want to feel in from the group because, of course, ideally, if we could get as many of our committee members able to participate at a time, it would be great.
I'm able to on that day if we need to move it up.
What time are you looking at moving it up to?
So if we could move it to, I could do anytime after 11. I think our person is available till 1:30.
I could do noon till 1:30.
I have a 1 o'clock that day, but I have a lovely excuse not to do it.
Well, we could do it noon to 1:30, and that way you could join until 1.
Oh,
Does
I'll
that
stick
work
around to
for you?
1:30. Yeah, I can make that work.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's update our November 2nd meeting to 12 to 1:30. And then at that time, we can schedule our next meetings. Again, I know we're heavy in the beginning, but I am hoping that we can kind of have a better idea after our next meeting as to how to proceed. Do we want to tackle 3.1 as our focus for our next meeting? Because I don't think we got to a point to determine what was the priority. I think everything, as we talk about it individually, everything could be our priority. But I'm very interested in this study. And I think a lot of what we've talked about circles back to the fact that we won't know some things until we know exactly, you know, how the study is being done and what information we can get back from the study. And then that's going to inform a lot of the other work.
Can Rachel join us or an MSDE representative?
I will put forward that request. Yes, and see. Right now, there is another event on the calendar, but I'm not sure who's attending.
Maybe what we could do, because I think that I agree that 1.3.1 really does set the tone for a lot of the other areas. But if we don't, would you all be open to, if we don't have all the answers that we need regarding the empirical study, that we address whatever we can in that meeting and then maybe start tackling part of 3.2? I'm just thinking if nobody can come from MSTE to answer some of the things, or if we don't have answer back, you know, through email or however, by then of like some of the specifics for it, we might have to kind of move on.
I absolutely don't want us to meet and not address an area. And so,
yeah. Right.
We have pretty concise recommendations. We'll have things to say about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we can so the other piece is once we get the updated infographic and timeline and everything, we'll be able to put some of those things in early as well. So let's plan for 3.1, and if not, we'll do 3.2 our next meeting.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
The next piece I wanted us to talk about is the meeting. And so what did you think worked well? What do you want us to change in the future for our upcoming meetings?
I like the shared notes. Multiple people were kind of recording and documenting main points that came up.
Yeah, the agenda is very helpful and it was detailed, so I think it helped keep us on schedule, which is very hard to do often and talking about all this.
No, I agree with both of those, and I like the fact that we came in that we're going to chunk this. We're going to pick a section and go through it at a meeting, dedicate a meeting to it, or multiple meetings to it.
Okay, great. Anything we want to change or anything we want to add next time?
The only thing I was going to suggest, because it seems like a challenge for us, is scheduling meeting times with everyone's very busy schedules. Maybe what we could do moving forward is send out a doodle poll or something on some of our availability over the next few weeks, so that we could kind of see who's available when and have everyone's, open slots there so that we could pick dates ahead of time.
Thank you, guys. We have the best pillar, the best people.
The best
Look at us
chair.
finishing on time.
Thank you. This is amazing. I think we have a lot to think about. And we actually have 5 minutes to discuss anything. If there's anything else you want to discuss, if not, we can. I can give you a couple minutes back in your day.
I just wanted to thank Mike for joining, because I'm really glad that you were able to come today, because I think that that really was a relief to hear that as a CTE person, that we could kind of move forward in the way that we have in the immediate, and there won't be any drastic changes overnight. I know that there's a lot of CTE supervisors who are watching or will watch this, and I think that will alleviate some anxiety of that, because I think everyone's open to making CTE and all these programs better. I think they just are all very many of them wear multiple hats and are trying to work through many grants and planning at the same time, and they just want to do it the right way. So I think that they will be very happy to hear and relieved that this is going to be a joined effort, and nothing's going to just kind of happen overnight for them that they'll have to figure out. So thank you for joining us.
No, thanks. And I appreciate the robust conversation around the educational side. I would just add that, the blueprint really lays out for the future. What do we want to do? So if there are ideas, part of the smartness of the group here, Dave, the community colleges and the local boards and CTE, isn't necessarily where we are now, but we have to scale the programs that we have. So if you guys come up with ideas, we're going to be looking, the CTE committee is going to be looking for ways and best practices about how to get scaled that we might not have thought about before, right? So the blueprint gives us that flexibility to think about things we might not have thought about as we think about where do we do remedial training, if we have to do it. Does it have to be done in the classroom? Could it be done outside the classroom? So I think, there are a lot of different ways of looking at the blueprint, but I think the best part of it for us in the CTE committee is helping to plan a path forward, not just saying, well, we can't get kids out of school now. Well, that's the way it is today. But if there are other ways that you think of, that you guys come up with, that your partners and collaborators come up with, that said, we could do it this way. Those are the kinds of things I think the CTE committee is going to be really keen on listening to, because you all know best. Like, you probably had thoughts like, if we only did this, we could do this so much better. So I would just ask you, like, in your processes of, working through your conversations, to think not necessarily only about what we're doing today and how to change today. And as you said, Robin, right, on a transition path, where do we transition to where we want to go? Because I don't want to lose sight of the fact as well, from the CTE committee standpoint, that the measurement in the CTE is that 45% of all high school graduates have got to wind up with a industry credential or a youth apprenticeship. So we've got to put all those things together to be able to make this thing work. So I think you all are some of the best folks to have input to help us do that. So thanks for inviting me. Like I said, we're going to be hiring staff over the next couple of weeks. So one of us should be able to get on and be a part of it as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure. Please continue to email me, let me know anything that you're thinking. And I look forward to the 2nd. We will be in contact in between that time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.